Hey, Adam, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You know, one of the things, the reason we have you on this episode today, and this is your third time appearing on our podcast, is you've got something that's pretty important that I want to share with people. And that is when we talk about building a platform. You know, as you become a multifamily syndicator and you're out there trying to grow your exposure, for a lot of us, and I know I teach it, is, hey, you should start a podcast. You should get out there and start putting your message and you'll find an audience. And so we've done that. We've had our podcast. This is like my third year in podcasting for me. And I think we've got maybe 145 episodes, something like that. And I felt like we've done pretty good. And then you came along and you said, hey, Corey, I would like to take a crack at it. I know you use another company to help you, promote and do stuff and produce the episodes. And you're like, I think my team can do it better. And you have. And so I want you to talk about what you do and how you do it. And for anybody out there that's thinking about starting a platform, I'm just gonna flat out say it. Adam Adams has a process that he will crush and help you crush your podcast and really get it tremendous traction. So, dude, it's been amazing.
Awesome. Well, we started like almost 4 years ago. Started the podcast. We definitely was already thinking about it 4 years ago, and so we got out. We launched a podcast, and I believe we did a lot of things wrong, and I started living vicariously through people that are part of like my mastermind, or who have just come and asked me to help them like launch a podcast or whatever. And so I found that as I kind of slow down and do something that nobody else talks about, which is like ready, aim, fire. Everyone's always saying ready, fire, aim, just start, just get it going. That's exactly what I did, and it took a long time to get any traction on the podcast that I launched. Now, I finally ended up selling it. We're in the same mastermind, Corey, and I told everybody that I wanted to sell that podcast because I made one of the biggest mistakes. I wasn't going toward a perfect avatar. I just like ready, fire, aim. I just did a podcast. And so I went to sell it, and at this time it had enough downloads. Finally, this was like after 3 years straight of grueling effort. It finally had enough downloads where I could sell the podcast for some money. And so 3 people in our mastermind said that they'd give me $50,000 or more. The highest one was just $60,000, but 3 offers for the podcast because now it had downloads, and it started just realizing like how valuable these podcasts are, because they're not just valuable to us, but they can be sold. We can monetize them with sponsorship and all that kind of cool stuff. So for the last little while, I've been just helping other people, promote a podcast that they already have had. Like yours has been around for 3 years. Another client, Chris Miles, has been around for 5 years. And like Chris just wasn't really seeing the results that he wanted. He had been doing it for so long, and it just never really took off. And so we started working with him, and just on the marketing. Actually, we're about to take over the editing, like you said, but we just started helping him market. And he went from 400 downloads per day to over 800 downloads per day. Ever since we've been working with him, he's getting double the listeners. 800 a day it's getting out there, So I feel like what a lot of, I guess the learning lesson for the listener is like, if you've already done ready, fire, aim, now it's time to do marketing, and I can help. And if you haven't launched yet, then you want to do ready, aim, fire. You want to understand who your avatar is. You want to market it really heavily in the beginning. And if you don't know how, I can help you. But you want to market it really heavily in the beginning because there's something special when you're just launching a new podcast. You can actually hit some algorithms for iTunes and get it out in front of more and more people. So I'm actually just launching now my next podcast, which is called the Podcast on Podcasting, which is kind of funny because you asked me to join you at just such an optimal time. Probably won't be all the way aired, but when on the first day that this comes out, but they can definitely look for the Podcast on Podcasting as well. It just for that help. But if I could back up and just talk about like what it's going to take, because you started the episode talking about building a platform, thought leadership, syndicators, and you're completely right. I've seen that a lot of times when we get like apartment education, most of the time where we usually will go when we do that, we're really getting educated how to underwrite, which is critical, how to find deals, which is important, how to legally take the money, which is you couldn't do anything without that.
Yep.
However, I noticed where I took my education in multifamily, we didn't learn how to be a thought leader. And there's so many people that took from the same company as I did, so definitely it's not a knock on them in any way. It's just there's a lot of people that took, and when we go to the meetings where there might be over 1,000 people, there's really just a couple of us that have actually syndicated a deal. It's really just a small handful. You can call them out by name. And I always wondered, like, why? What are people struggling with? And I found out, like, they're struggling with raising money, but it's not because they didn't learn how to do it legally. It's because they don't have a platform. And you mentioned the podcast being an awesome platform. I recommend it over YouTube because, like, with YouTube, there's 60,000 channels. There's 60,000 different people, 60 million, people that you're competing with. And in podcasting, it's 1.5 million. And so it's like really a good time to do the podcasting. And we've found that
it's still small, right? Don't you think?
Yeah,
it's still a small niche. But what I found too, Adam, is that your podcast listeners are become very loyal raving fans. Like they get to know you and their voice. And when they do decide to take action, it's really very definite, right? It's not wishy-washy or like, it's a warm lead.
Yeah. When they call, they feel like they know you. They feel like they're like, oh, I don't need to ask any questions about you. I already know you. I'm ready to do this. So that's really what we've experienced as well. But there is a special thing that a lot of your listeners are going to want to know is if they're going to be starting a podcast or if they're going to be wanting to do some type of thought leadership. Podcasts seem to be one of the best ones, not just because of the competition, but the data shows that they're higher net worth. They're more wealthy.
Yes.
The podcast listeners tend to have more money than like a YouTube watcher will.
Oh, absolutely.
In general. So
I'll give you an example too. Like your last live event, right? And even Michael Blanc's last live event that I went to, I would say most were pretty proficient podcasters, right? And when you look at, because now I don't want to maybe name drop, but I am gonna do it. So because I've been to Dave Lindahl events, right? And I'm just gonna say the people that are attending the event is night and day. Yours and Michael's podcast listeners, that's what it is, a upper echelon clientele, and more sophisticated, more educated, and higher net worths, and it makes it very intoxicating to be around that. Then I went to Dave Lindahl's, and there's a guy holding a sign says, it's like some stupid, crazy stuff of, asking for money or something. I don't know. It's just like, oh my God, brother, no, don't put that sign away. You're not going to get anybody to talk to you with that sign on.
Yeah.
And so it's radical. It's not just different. It's radically different.
Yeah, it's amazing. So there's just so much value that you can get from having a podcast. But I will echo that if you haven't launched one now, make sure that when you do, that you want to utilize the first 8 weeks. Some people talk about the first 8 weeks being a really big deal within Apple Podcasts in the iTunes algorithm. And what I do, like so there's an awesome guy. He's in my mastermind a couple years ago, and I helped him launch a podcast. His name's Steven Pesavento, and it was awesome because like he's such a great guy. The day before we launched his podcast, no one really knew who he was. Like he was in a couple masterminds, and so like the mastermind members knew him, but he had never been on a podcast. He had never like hosted an event. He didn't have his mastermind back then, so he wasn't really well known. And I will share the critical difference of like, and maybe we can get into more detail on it, but just he was launching a podcast April of 19, and it was called the Investor Mindset. It was in the business category, the entrepreneurship category, and I'm trying to remember the third category. And then Bigger Pockets, your listener probably knows who Bigger Pockets is. They have a good podcast for like brand new beginners, people that have never done anything, and they attract a lot of beginners. They don't talk about the stuff that you talk about on this podcast. This might feel overwhelming to somebody, but it's really easy to get somebody to learn how to what they always talk about, house hacking. But the point is, they have like over 1 million subscribers, literally, not figuratively, and they were launching. Actually, it's a good friend of yours and mine. I'm pretty sure you know him well as well. Jay Scott and his wife Carol were launching the Bigger Pockets business edition, and they put it out to like their 1 million subscribers, and they let everybody know about them, and they already had a big name. And Steven, he was kind of like that underdog in the story, right? He was kind of just launching this podcast. No one really knew him, and the big thing that I made sure that he did is I just said, you got to market this and take control of some of your ratings and reviews. I just asked him, call your friends, call your parents, all do it too. And we were able to kind of get like the first 50 or 60 ratings and reviews in such a short amount of time that what iTunes did is they put him, he was top 10 in the new and noteworthy category. Yeah. He was number 1 in the business category, while Bigger Pockets Business, who launched the exact same time, was number 4 in the business category. He was number 1 in entrepreneurship, and I'm trying to remember what the last, but he in 4 categories he was top 10. Yeah. And now he just has such an incredible listenership compared to that other podcast. And it's because we started it right. And
well, you think about
amazing.
We'll use like Netflix as an example, right? When you're on Netflix and you say the top 10 watched, there's some things in there that I would never find, but it's like, wait, that's number 6. Hold on, let's click it, right? And that's the power of Netflix, and same thing with Apple, the power of their marketing arm. Dude, when you get that wind in your sails, your ship's forever on course, man. It's going somewheres. Now, I didn't get that, right? But I want to. So listen, the reason I had you on,
and when I originally started my first one, I was the same way.
Like, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to start a new one. But here's the thing. You have helped me and my podcast like crazy. Like, can we talk about our numbers a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so this is gonna your underwear.
This is full disclosure, kids.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm not even saying I've got a great podcast, but I love doing it. And so, and here's the challenge. And I just want to put my precursor here. Corey buys multifamily apartments. Okay, that's what he does. It's what he likes to do. That's my main core business. I love also teaching, right? But Corey sucks at marketing, right? And honestly, I've not just had, until I found the right person, which is going to be Adam, and you're going to see what he's done in a short amount of time. It's been mind-blowing. So I wish I would have knew you back when I first started, because it would have been amazing. But our show is getting lots of traction in a short amount of time, and that I'm super excited about.
So we use a thing called Podkite, Chartable. We look at Apple. We try to just, whenever we have a client like you who wants to really grow the podcast, we look at 5 different metrics, hopefully, because I didn't write them down right before, but there are 5 specific metrics that we look at. We look at downloads. We look at subscribers. We look at ratings. We look at reviews, which are different. Ratings are just 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars. Reviews are written out. This is what I like about Corey's podcast. We look at the number of those. We look at how many of them are coming in per week, per month. And we look at popularity scores as well for different episodes. And so my team, we've been doing a lot of marketing. We needed to do it for our show where we started it wrong. We finally got that, and we're helping a lot of other people do their shows. Chris Miles, Julie and Annie Lamb, the Dickerson, those 2 women with their Good Egg. And so we're tracking all these things, and then we try them on other podcasts. So it was perfect timing when you asked, what can you do to grow this? I was like, we're getting our systems down now. So the truth is we're doing this for other people. We've only been doing it for other people just in 2020.
Yep.
But we finally gotten to a place where your podcast, which wasn't ranking on the upper, yeah. Neither was, the Good Egg, the Investing for Good, and neither was Chris Miles. None of them were ranking anywhere before we started working with them. And then we have about a dozen different strategies that we're doing to kind of get podcasts in front of people. And yours and theirs have recently yours is far above the top. I'm looking at your numbers on my other screen right now. And if you do the math, you're much higher than 5 times better than just the top 1%. You're better than 5 times better than just the top 1%. There's 1.5 million podcasts out there, and it wasn't ranking, and now it's ranking huge. And I'm just so humbled and grateful that the things we're doing are working. I will give your listener just one thing that we do in case they can implement it on their own. It does take a lot of time. I have a good team of virtual assistants. I have a really large army of a team where I think about 7 of them are in the Philippines, and then the other 2 are just in other random countries. One's from India, it's somewhere close to Dubai, but I don't remember the name of it right now. It's a small country. But the point is that I've got this great team that I love marketing. I actually close on apartments like you do, but I don't do any of the apartment stuff. I only do the marketing stuff. My team is the asset manager. Yeah. I have 2 people that do asset management. One person's acquisition manager, and then I've got some underwriters and everything like that. So they do all the hard stuff. I just do the marketing for it. So our company for multifamily grew because of the thing that I love is marketing.
Yeah.
But I took this and I figured out systems and I gave it to my assistants. And I think this will be something tangible for the listener if they want to do it on their own. And it's simply that that I found that the best way of marketing is one-on-one marketing. When you do a Facebook ad, oftentimes people just skim right past it really fast.
Yep.
And so what we've figured out is that we could create a series of questions that we would give to people on different social media platforms one-on-one that would turn into having them becoming subscribers, listeners, downloaders, and rate and review your show. And we've done that exact thing with your show. And so I'll have them reach out to go to groups where it's about apartment investing. That's one of the types of groups that we have them go to. And we just start connecting with people, and we do things like, hey, what are you doing in the industry? Are you more looking for money, or are you looking for deals right now? And you start to get to know what they're looking for, and then it's a series of questions, and it's pre-scripted, and it's genius. It works so well. And so this question leads into, awesome, what podcasts are you listening to right now? Do you have any good recommendations on that topic? And then we'll get the recommendations. And then we finally say, I just came across an awesome podcast for multifamily. Would love to share it with you. This guy is dope and so easy to get along with. And then they're like, oh yeah, please send it over. And then we say, all right, it's called Multifamily Legacy Podcast. And I swear it's the best podcast around. And I just saw that they're ranked in the top 1% on iTunes. And would you be okay if I sent you the link? Because we're a third party. It would be harder to do if this was you doing it. Right. But may I send you a link to their podcast? I think you get a lot of value from it. And specifically this one episode. And so we'll send it, we'll get permission. This is another point that's important. You don't just send people links when you're doing this one-on-one. You get permission first. So then we'll send it to them. And then we'll just ask them, we'll say, hey, did you get a chance to check that episode out that I sent you? What did you think about it? So 2 questions. Again, it's a series of questions. Did you get a chance to listen to that episode I sent you? Question mark. What did you think of it? Question mark. And so then they'll let us know like what they thought of it. And then we'll say something to the effect of, it's so random. It's hard to explain this like fast, but we'll say something like, we'll hear them and their words on what they're saying that they liked about your show. And then we'll find a rating and review that was similar. And then we'll say, oh my gosh, it looks like you already gave them a rating and review. And we'll literally send them that screenshot of somebody else's rating. And then this is so funny because they typically go in and they say, oh, well, no, I haven't left a rating, but I'll probably just do it right now. And then we just let them know how easy it is. They give a rating, they give a review. And then we, every now and again, we'll reach out and we'll just say back to them again, dude, did you check out that last episode Corey just posted? It's just like a question. That's to keep them there, keep them downloading it, keeping you having ratings and reviews. So anyway, on the numbers, it was averaging. It was averaging about 5,000, 5,500, up to a little higher. But you were around like 5,000 per month, which is actually really good. Because that is better than almost every podcast, 5,000, especially if you're doing like weekly posts. That's a lot. That's good traction. But that's where the podcast was. And the first month that we started, you did our Blitz package where we go all out. Like the Blitz package is just where we just really, really, really go hard. And you had 19,300 downloads so 3 to 4 times the normal.
3x.
And then we pulled it back a little bit, not much, but we pulled it back a little bit in the next month from that top level to still a pretty good level, and it was 15,000. 15,000, still triple normal.
And that was, and I actually had a gallbladder surgery, so I missed 2 or 3 episodes, or like 2 episodes in my normal just sending out podcast, right? So that's part of the reason why.
I need to mention something. I want to put you in I want to put a dunce cap on your head, but I also want the listener, if they're going to start a podcast, I really want them to take this to heart. In our finances, Corey, we make sure that we have 3 months or 6 months or 12 months of expenses ready to go. Like, everyone knows that. Everyone talks about that. With our finances, we're like, we don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. And it's the same in podcasting. You don't want to live episode to episode. It can really hurt someone's podcast to have gallbladder surgery or have coronavirus or go on a 2-month vacation and not be able to post episodes. And so even though this isn't specific about the marketing, it's good to bank some episodes to just get them.
Normally we try to be 4 months or 4 weeks behind, like banked, right? Like have some in the bag, right?
Yeah. It can be super tough, and it's not your fault to have that surgery and to get COVID and all whatever else happens.
Dude, it's been like one after the other. I'm like, dude, can I just get a break here for a minute, right?
So for the listener, one thing that I would recommend is just record 12 episodes that are timeless, and you only publish when you have to. Yeah. They're just sitting in a bank. So like when you have gallbladder surgery, you just say, hey, I don't know how long it's going to be. I need you to post these 12 once a week until I get better. That's a huge tip to the listener, and for us, as we're trying to do it, because iTunes starts pulling that podcast away, and the listener. You talked about Netflix earlier, Corey. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about Netflix. What happens when you finish a season of your favorite show and the next season's not there yet? You find another show. Yep. That's what happens. And so when we take a week or 2 or a month off, a lot of times our listener needs, they're wanting to consume, they don't have it at this place, but so they're still going to have to find it somewhere, and they might love that other podcast better, or they might love that other season of the other Netflix series better.
They find a new favorite.
Yeah, and you don't want that, so you just want to be consistent no matter what it takes. And so a big tip, have 12 always ready to go in the bank, and if you're doing weekly, that gets you 3 months of gallbladder surgery or vacations to Hawaii or whatever it is, So.
Noted. Hey, but now let's talk about written reviews. So what happened on, like, where would you start? Where we?
Oh my goodness. Okay, written reviews.
It was like 142 when you took over.
Holy moly!
I know, it's like 5.
It has 563 now.
Yeah.
That's insane, brother.
Yeah, 142 or something like that when you first took over.
Holy cow.
500 and something.
Okay, this is where I have to say results can vary. The results can vary. I don't know if we'll get everyone that fast, but you are doing a
I must have a good show.
You do have you have an awesome show. And actually, speaking of ratings and reviews, I've been reading a lot of them, and everybody's just talking about how they resonate with you really well, how you speak the truth, how you're on their same playing field, like how you're not salesy. Like you add immense amount of value to the listener that comes straight from the heart, and you're not having some type of sales agenda. You're not, maybe you probably want passive investors, and you probably want clients to come to the Kahuna boardroom, right? Obviously, that benefits everybody. It benefits them and you. But what I'm saying is the way that the listener feels as I read all of these reviews is that it's number one, adding true value to them on how they can get to the next level, and the other pieces will fall into place. That's what I'm reading, which is just amazing.
Yeah, it's been, and listen, my biggest regret is I never started advertising and marketing this way in the beginning, because we'd have a much bigger audience, a much bigger show, but that's fine. So I'll keep, we're going to, you've got a good track record with me. We're going to be doing it for a long time, Adam.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thank you.
But just to kind of I just want to, from my perspective, listen, it's always a little bit nervous to change. Change is typically kind of hard. And especially when you have a system and a process for producing podcasts. And I was using a company called Podcast Motor. And, producing the podcast, but they really didn't try or offer anything else to market it. And, and I'm not a marketing genius. That's not my boat. That's not where I roll. And so when you first came over, I was like, well, can we do this? We got to do this. These are all the things we do. And you're like, yeah, we've got this, right? But the proof is in the results. And I was blown away with the written reviews. First of all, it went off the chart, and then to get traction, I think we're ranked 198 in all U.S. podcasts.
Every business anything with that word business, which is the biggest category. That's the hardest category, and you're ranking top 200.
Yeah,
amazing.
So very, very cool, right? I mean, I couldn't be more happier with my results. And we do start so I don't measure results on podcasts probably the same way. Eventually what happens is it's kind of like a tidal wave. It comes in, it starts to roll, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's with the actionable items, which is eventually we do sell, here's how you invest. We're getting more and more investor calls. We're getting more and more people that are interested in our mastermind and things like that. And so that's kind of but that's not why, the truth is that's not why I do my podcast. My podcast, I do it because I love to teach. It's my outlet. But the results from it do matter. And how do I help more people get a bigger audience, right? And that's what you're helping me do. And so I asked you to come on and do this podcast with me because it's not often that somebody comes in and makes not just a little turn, but a big U-turn, it feels like, right? Of where you were going. And in this shape, it's kind of like escape velocity. We were doing something and we didn't even know what we didn't know until you kind of shed some light to it, Adam. And I just know that there's other people that could really, benefit from, you've already gave that idea, what you just gave is gold. For anybody that listen, if you want to just grind and do it, he just gave you the success formula, or one of them that would work. The other part is to hire him to do it. And so I want to make sure that you give out how to find you so they can hire you if they're thinking about, because if you're thinking about launching a podcast, if you don't use Adam, I think you're probably stupid. Okay?
I think so too.
I just said it loudly. But that's how I truly feel, because when you see good and then you see great, you're like, oh, I don't want the average crap anymore. I want the great stuff. Awesome. Because it does matter, right? And really, that relevance does matter. I've paid lots of money for people to learn how to get on TV, to speak at NASDAQ, to get these types of assets in to be able to say that you've been on ABC, NBC, and all Fox. That's a craft. It's a skill set. You've got to learn to do it. Marketing, you may or may not want to learn how to do it, or you can just hire Adam. And in my life, whenever I see a shiny easy button, right? When I see it and it works, when it absolutely works, dude, you smash it, bro. You smash the easy button. So if you're not smashing Adam's easy button, you're just doing yourself a disservice. So how do we find you, bro?
Thank you, first off. They can get lots of resources and hire us by going to mypodcast.website. We might get another URL as well, but this one's mypodcast.website. So it's not a .com or a .net or .io or whatever. It's just .website, mypodcast.website. The point is, like, we do three things. We can help you launch, and we've helped multiple people launch and get into the top 1% ranked on iTunes. Multiple people launch. And as of recently, we started doing more marketing, and I'm happy to say that this last few weeks, we've been able to get four podcasts that went from not being ranked to actually being ranked. So launching we can do, and we crush it. I think we're the best ever at helping you launch. Marketing, I don't know anybody else who does marketing at all. So I think it's kind of our niche, and we crush it. And then we're really good at editing. We can do all your post-production and kind of take that off your plate if that's where you'd want to go. And for most of us that are listening, we probably want to work on the business, not have to be in it. So I'd love to be that part to edit your shows too. All of that info is at mypodcast.website.
Yeah, and just so to be clear, he does it all for me. So like, you produce my podcast. Like, I just give you the raw files, and we have a process for that. It works out really well, really good. Your team is amazing, and they handle it, and it's very consistent and very good. And then from there, the marketing part is what we've given you as additional. And so far, we've been extremely pleased in that process. And listen, I just looked at. I didn't look at yours, but I'm going to. I got to see how many written reviews you got. But I did. Hey, but I did. Michael
Corey,
Blanc.
you passed me last month.
Yeah.
You passed me last month.
So,
and you passed Michael too.
Yes, I did. So I went and looked at his real quick, and he's like, 430. I was like, I got him.
Yeah, by 100. By 130 more as of just today. That's insane. Michael Blanc's been doing it for a long time, and he's got a really well-known name.
Yeah.
I like your podcast better, personally. I resonate with it more. So it's been easy to promote it because I really feel like just you add so much value that it's not hard for me to tell people that I think that you add value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. You're crushing it, exceeding Michael Blanc, who's been doing this for a lot more years.
Well, listen, I'm excited to see where we take it and where your team helps make this thing go. Because my goal is to leave enough clues that anybody that was ever interested in multifamily can at least see the path that I went on and the journey that I went on, and hopefully be able to take that same journey and make it theirs. So the ultimate goal, I think, when you're doing it from the point of, I do it because I love it. Money always follows that, by the way, right? You can always do something that you truly love. And eventually you can get paid a lot of money to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I love this podcasting. I enjoy the conversations with others. And then sometimes I like just to solo it and just say, let me just tell you what happened with Corey. And I'm usually my biggest guinea pig, right? And the truth is, because I'm not afraid to show you my failures, right? Adam, having you on my team has been an amazing partnership. I'm super excited, and I can't thank you enough for coming on. If I'll give you the last word for like words of wisdom to inspire others to grow their platform, what would you say? What's some inspiring words you want to add?
Yeah, I want to be able to sum it up really well. I know what I want to say. I think that having a thought leadership platform is critical, and I have found that podcasting does more for you and your business than just getting passive investors. And so the inspirational thing that I'd like to leave the people with, your listener, is that, look, not only are you going to add an immense amount of value to the passive investor that you need to be able to raise more money, you're also going to have, and I'm sure, Corey, you've had this as well, people that have the deals that we are buying, they look up my name. They always do. And they find the podcast and they find 500 episodes of real estate, and they listen to an episode or two and they say, this is my buyer. It's more than just passive investors, but what I love is the connection, like the one-on-one connection that I have with people like Corey, Joe Fairless, Michael Blanc. If you know Hal Elrod, I got to have dinner with Hal because of my podcast. And I can text Hal on his birthday, and we might be starting a Miracle Morning meetup. I might be helping him launch a meetup. Your network is your net worth, and when you can control the people that you're talking with on a weekly basis through podcasting, it becomes an elevated status where you actually become more successful because your friends are now the people that are absolutely crushing it. Those are the people that you're well connected with. And so start a podcast, start it as soon as possible. And when you do, you'll notice that it gets more value than you could ever get with something like a YouTube channel or whatever.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Well said. Guys, listen, thank you for coming on, Adam, sharing your nuggets and your wisdom. For everybody else that's listening right now, you know how I end every episode. It's the same way every time because it starts with belief. If you're thinking about doing a podcast, start believing that you're going to be successful. Meditate it in your mind. Tell yourself daily that you're going to have a successful podcast, and then do the work behind it to achieve it, right? It starts with a belief. If you believe it, you can achieve it, and your paradise is possible.